you're in your suit, you have your attaché case, and very prim and proper. So I'm sitting down. Jeremy goes over to sit in the chair behind the desk, and this was an open office. So when he went to sit down in the chair, apparently the chair was broken. So the chair threw him back and threw him forward out of the chair onto the floor.
Before we get started with the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Global Training Center. As trade compliance professionals, you want to make sure that your procedures and documentation are completed as correctly as possible to avoid any delays and possible fines. We provide a range of trade compliance courses that will fit your needs. From in-person or web training to recorded on-demand courses, we can train one or even thousands on your team through your learning platform or on our portal. We can even customize a private session for your team. Go to globaltrainingcenter.com to find out more.
Hey, folks, we're on for Simply Trade folks on this show for today. We've got a great show that's coming up, and it's going to be something where Lalo, I want to tell you, these two folks that are on, we have two folks instead of just one, and we're going to get to hear their story and whatnot. But I want to tell you, this is, they're like family to me. So I am really enjoying this and looking forward to talking to them and going there. But first off, as we're looking at this, with the seasons, with the different things going on, we have Christmas, we have New Year's, we have everything that's going on. It's just, I'm hoping that everybody takes a moment to stop and, hug their family, check on them, see what's going on with all the turmoil that's going on. But Lalo, I know you've had your family all over creation as well. So I guess you've enjoyed some good family time as well.
We have, and we'll have both of my kids coming in here towards Christmas, which is I'm really excited. I'm not exactly sure when the show is airing, but right around Christmas. So, but it will be the first year that our son will not be physically with us in Christmas, which is going to stink a little. But I mean, it hurts a little. But for today's show, though, I know we're a little pressed on time, but for today's show, I am super excited because it's the first time we have a couple that is going to be in our folk show. But not only that, I can relate so much to this because my wife and I also run our business with Global Training Center. And people always say, so you guys go to the same office? And we literally do. We go to a physical office together. We see each other. I mean, this is not a joke, 24/7 and 15 years now. And so people are like, gosh, and you still are together? It's I think we're even stronger. I don't know. It's funny. If I travel without her, it's kind of awkward. It's very weird, but anyway, so we'll see what our guest, Andy, you can introduce our guest, and then we'll start talking a little bit about that a little bit.
Well, it's folks, we've got Jeremy Page and Shannon Fura from the Page Fura law firm in the Chicago area. They are both, I've known them, I guess we've known each other, gosh. Well, you know what? We met, it's we met, didn't we meet the first time at Tracy's wedding?
Oh, I think before that, Andy.
No, before that.
No, that's right, because of the conference. I don't know. Anyway, we've known each other for a long time and whatnot. So, and we've, traveled to different conferences, in different countries and different things. I got to tell you, I love y'all. You are so fantastic. Have a great family. You're both a son and daughter that are wonderful. And then your older daughter, Jeremy, is she finished college or did she? Oh
yeah, she finished her master's in social work. So, gainfully employed, doing great. It's her birthday in 5 days. Happy birthday, Marissa.
And she was at Northwestern she went to?
Yeah.
Yep, Northwestern. Good man.
Okay. I guess my memory's working a little bit today.
Not too bad.
I took my smart pills today. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
So anyway, welcome to our show. Y'all have been on our show individually. This is great to have you both on here together.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
So as Lalo was saying, you two have a law firm together. And so why don't you tell folks a little bit about your firm first and what type of law are you practicing?
So Lalo, it's your milestones are pretty parallel. So we just celebrated our 15th year anniversary as our own firm. We're based in Chicago. Sorry, I'm a little raspy. I'm getting over a cough. So this is pretty good. And this is most people want to hear me talk anyways. But we've been around for 15 years. We are an international trade boutique. So it's all import, export, do a lot of work, supply chain security as well. I've just real quick, dirty. I've been doing this for it'll be 38 years in January. Mostly in Chicago, with a stint in Miami along the way to add a little bit of spice. But so we've worked together as the two of us as our own firm since 2008, and never looked back. It's just been a great ride. And I let Shannon pick up little pieces before I steal the microphone the whole time.
No, well, it's funny, Lalo, you were talking about you and your wife, and a lot of people ask us the same questions. They're like, how do you do that? It's 24/7 in your house, and it very much is 24/7. There are lots of times when you will see us with the laptops open, and if we jokingly say we look like we're playing Battleship, for those of you who still know and play Battleship. But I think the funniest part, there's actually a funny story. Do you want to know the funny story about how Jeremy and I met?
Yes, I'd love to, because that's where I was going to go next.
So, and this kind of leads into it. So the important thing is, so Jeremy and I have only been married for 12 years. So the important thing about that is we had our firm long before we were ever a couple, which is really the funny part of the story. But how Jeremy and I met is that I was actually flying down to Miami to interview with law firms that I was going to go to work for. I was not a lawyer yet. I was going to be going to law school at night and working full time during the day. And so I was interviewing with different firms as I came out of my master's program. And my then boyfriend at the time was going to University of Miami. And so I was going and interviewing with some law firms that were down there. And I was interviewing with one firm, and I had interviewed with two of the named partners, and which was a really interesting interview. And as I'm getting ready to leave that interview, there was this associate that was walking down the hall, and it was Jeremy. And one of the named partners pointed to him and pointed to me and said, "You need to talk to her. You need to talk to her." And kind of gave him my resume. And Jeremy looked at me like, first of all, who are you? Why are you even here? I don't even know who you are. And we ended up, he said, well, okay, sit down. And it was actually an open partner's office, old school law firm. So you had partner offices and associate offices. And so Jeremy ushered me in, and he said, have a seat. And I sat down, and, you're in your suit, you have your attaché case, and very prim and proper. So I'm sitting down. Jeremy goes over to sit in the chair behind the desk. And this was an open office. So when he went to sit down in the chair, apparently the chair was broken. So the chair threw him back and threw him forward out of the chair onto the floor. So imagine me and my young self in this very proper interview, looking over the desk, trying not to laugh. Like, what do you do now? So he gets himself back up.
I'm like climbing up.
He's trying to climb back up to so he gets himself back up onto the chair, and he looks at me and he said, well, I guess that broke the ice. That's how our interview started. So we proceeded to figure out we were both only children, and we were talking about work and the trade and the area and all that good stuff. But the funniest thing about it was when I left, I wasn't sure if I was going to take the job or not. And when I left, the first thing I said when I came out of the interview was, well, if they hired this guy, this firm has to have a little bit of personality. So I took the
job. And she's held that over me ever since.
I have held that over him ever since. Yeah. So that's actually how we met, and we started working together in Miami. And then several years later, that firm sent us up to open their Chicago office, and they sent the two of us to open the Chicago office. And we were in the Chicago office for many years until 2008, when we broke off and started our own firm. But again, at that point, we were not married yet. We weren't even a couple. We were just colleagues. So we've worked together many, many, many years.
Well, that is fantastic. That's fascinating. Well, I will say that y'all have, the one thing, Jeremy, That sounds about like something like I would do, is like, have the graciousness of a bull in a china closet kind of a deal, right?
It was a very glamorous way I got up, like a ballerina.
That's not what I recall, but okay.
The other thing, I love how you were sitting there, the hands come up on the desk.
It was like this. Yeah.
Literally, it was like
you can't make that
yes.
up. I promise you.
That'd be one of those movie moments. It's like, okay, what just happened?
Exactly.
Totally.
Exactly.
It's crazy that, Jeremy, you said how our business with Global Training Center, my wife and I, kind of parallels yours. So does the way we met. I didn't fall off a chair, but we both met at work too. And
wow. Okay.
We were colleagues. She was a computer programmer and so was I. So we were both computer programmers. And back in the day, we called ourselves computer programmers. Now they call them software engineers, right? So that's how we met. We both worked on projects together, and we worked for many years together until we just came together. That's funny how very similar too on the way we did that. But anyway, I just want to throw that in. We need to get together sometime whenever we go to Chicago and just hook up with you guys.
Absolutely. We'd love it.
And Jeremy, were you practicing law? Were you practicing trade at that firm, or was it something different?
Oh no!
And Shannon, did you know you wanted to do trade, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's funny. I was one of those strange kids that when I was in second grade, this is a true story. When I was in second grade, they have you draw a picture of what you want to be when you grow up, and you take it home to your parents and this whole thing. And, most of the kids were doing firemen, policemen, really awesome, career paths. And I decided to draw a courthouse, and I brought it home to my parents. And my parents looked at each other and they said, "Oh no, what did we do?" And so they were. I don't think they were too pleased with that career path. My dad was a federal government employee. My mom worked for the local school system. And the minute their only child comes home and says she wants to be a lawyer, they're like, "We must have done something wrong." So when I went up through, that's all I ever wanted to practice. Actually, was trade. That was a big goal of mine. So when I looked for firms that practice in this area, I only looked at boutique firms, and it was funny. I started when I was 24. So, and I'm only 28 now. So, that's fine. But it was, that's all I ever wanted to do.
Much in that short period of time, I'm telling you.
Exactly. I'm just a career veteran in 4 years.
Yeah.
Let me make it clear. When I was in second grade, I wanted to be a baseball player. Yeah. So I didn't realize what a geek I married.
You now know.
Look what comes out in these podcasts. These are awesome.
Yeah, it's a revelation.
It's like you got your own little couch over here, It's like.
So what are your feelings about this?
Yeah, right. Wow.
Exactly.
Well, I should have known when she said she went to the interview with an attaché case. I don't even think half people know what that is anymore.
Yeah, they're not going to know what it is. People are going to be Googling that as they listen
briefcase,
to it.
briefcase, people, briefcase.
You mean a backpack? Yeah, sure.
That's one of the things I actually still have want mine is that one of the last gifts my mother gave me was a leather briefcase, and a very nice one. Super nice, actually. And, I carried that and I used that. I mean, it's literally traveled with me around the world and whatnot. And some of the latches are a problem. I'm like, I wonder if I could get those replaced or fixed or something, because I really don't want to get rid of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But that said, I will say, it's like, okay, then laptops came along. Well, if you remember, laptops, the early ones were, heavy and bulky and whatnot. And whatnot. Now, with the laptops that we have now and stuff, I'm like, you know what? And I actually needed a briefcase the other day, and I like, man, I put that in there, and I'm like, man, this is fantastic. So rather than like a backpack or something like that, I just slipped that right in there and strap my stuff, looking pretty cool with a attaché case. Right. Yeah, so.
you think of all the people on the airplanes, the old accountants, the big black rectangular square topped. You couldn't even fit that on an airplane if you wanted to anymore, right? I mean, it's incredible, the evolution from that perspective.
You all remember, and a lot of attorneys and different ones had some of these things too, is that very early days, you had the compacts that had what they call, it wasn't a laptop, it was called a portable computer. And it was like the face on this big square heavy box or whatever, and you would fold it down and there was a little screen in there and whatnot, and the keyboard and whatnot. And it was like, I had one of those when I was traveling around in my early FedEx days. And I'm like, dang, this thing's like a boat anchor.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. We every couple of years, obviously we try to stay invested in technology. So we'll upgrade our equipment, and my back pain has gone down immeasurably over the years, and it just you'll fit in a bag. To your earlier comment, Andy, I mean, I still have some of these old ones that are literally, like you said, it's like a boat. You could a raft.
I can remember when 56K was big. It was like whatever, and now anyway. Saying all that though, with the advent of so much different technology that we have actually seen, and it has just been phenomenal. From remember dial-up, and you've got mail.
You've got mail.
Yeah. But there's a lot of folks that don't even know what that movie is or whatever, and it's hard for them to identify even if they did see it in today's world. But of all the advent of the technology changes and all that, what about the legal industry? Has there been a transformation of things from y'all's perspective?
I mean, it's ongoing now. There's always some evolution, but I think from the legal perspective, it's mostly been back office. A lot of, litigation heavy firms and firms that have really large documentation, collections, and you have to make their way through it. AI, as it continues to evolve, is a wonderful tool to kind of filter and organize and go through that data. Ridiculously expeditiously. But, if you follow it all, now with ChatGPT, where it can literally write something for you, that's become problematic. Because some people have adopted it, and you've probably seen some of these reprimands issued to lawyers because they've written briefs using ChatGPT, which actually made up cases. So there's a lot of good things to technology, but there are some dangers in how you apply it. And I think from the legal perspective, there's also the other side, the investment for cybersecurity, because there's been a number of very high profile breaches of law firms and their servers and their tools that has led to the release of confidential business information. A couple of years ago, there was this thing called the Panama Papers, and it was a law firm based out of Panama, a lot of high net worth individuals and businesses, and there was a lot of shielding under their laws legally. It's the way it is there. But this information all got released, and it was very damaging to many people, and led to some tax avoidance issues and things like that. So
that goes beyond the scenario where it's like you're executing your legal services and things of that nature, but due to the technological advances on things, people are able to hack some of that. So it's I guess that's a danger, isn't it?
And it's kind of funny, and Jeremy's talking about one side of it, but also flip to our world in trade, right? So when you started making changes in technology, one of the big issues, particularly obviously we practice international trade, so you're talking import export, and one of the big issues was the cloud-based type systems, right? And where you were able to store data. And, a lot of law firms were early adopters and were putting things in the cloud. In our world, we had to take a step back and say, well, hold on a minute, where is that cloud? Is that cloud in the US? Is that cloud not in the US? What is that going to mean for if we have data from our clients, right, that we have to put on there? And also before the whole AI really started to take shape, you also had concerns where people were using the internet and things to short circuit research. So they were looking at things like Wikipedia, and that kind of predated that. But from the legal profession,
what's wrong with Wikipedia?
Yeah. But it was one of those where people were trying to get away from, which you should never do, but they were trying to get away from the what they would term old school research for citations and things like that. And now, as Jeremy noted, so that was then. Now we're getting into the whole AI concept. So it's really been interesting to see how it's evolved from the legal perspective.
Let me shift gears on y'all here a little bit, especially from a standpoint of, I'm sure there's a lot of folks out that are, dealing with work-life balance and things of that nature. And I mean, this comes back, Lalo and Elsa and you two, Shannon and Jeremy. How do you balance out the scenario here, especially as y'all are working together? And I know you guys wind up traveling individually, you travel as a family, and whatnot, which is great. But how do you balance that on the, what is like an average day or average week for y'all? I mean, are you getting together and collaborating on your calendars, or you're like, okay, who's got what and who's going to take this one this way and that way and whatever? And what do you do?
Like, do you know the beginning of Home Alone where they oversleep and then they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off,
yep.
throwing luggage down, running through the airport?
That was this morning. That was this morning.
I was just gonna say that was this morning. We're like, it's my birthday today, so we took a little moment to whatever. And then it was like, oh, I can't say the second word as I'm live.
Scramble, scramble.
We got a podcast in an hour. Go. We had to get 2 kids off to school. Showers ready. Look, kind of, Shannon looks very presentable. And literally, I walked in the door. Had to get Starbucks, of course. And, okay, let's go. And that's pretty much our life. We also, and it's not slowed down. I mean, that's, kids are older, so they've moved past I want to do every single activity to maybe I'll focus on these 2 or 3. So it's helped a little bit with some of that juggling and scheduling. But, and there's a 5-year gap between our 2. So there's enough of a separation that we don't necessarily have all that overlap. And her son's 11, so he's got a little more flexibility to do things on his own. But you're right, Andy. I mean, when Liam was younger, he went with us everywhere. I mean, AEI, NAFTZ. I remember that. They all would know him because he was young enough.
Clients. He went to clients.
Matter of fact, when we had our daughter, like a couple years ago, we went on a trip with Liam alone to NAFTZ in Savannah. And he looked at us, we got on the airplane, and he goes, like the old days, just the 3 of us. And he goes, that sister of mine, she's cramped my travel style.
So, we didn't know he had a travel style, but apparently he had a travel style. So apparently she's cramping his travel style.
But you were right. I mean, I know it's cliche, but it's true. It really does take a village, and we're really fortunate. The village we live in has an amazing infrastructure of families and friends. We had a client coming down early this week, and because we're worried about getting downtown with traffic, we said we really should leave it extra early, call one of our neighbors who's a dear friend who had to take their own son to the same school as our daughter. We're like, hey, do you mind if we drop her off? She's like, not at all. And they walked together, and we were able to make our meeting without any issue. And we reciprocate a lot that way. It's just such a healthy environment. And then we have you got to have a stable of people who could stay overnight, come in for a couple of hours, navigate some event that we both, obviously we're working as well. So, COVID obviously changed that rhythm a lot because, we really had a travel rhythm. And so that broke that down because everyone stopped traveling. It didn't break down our functionality because we were so used to traveling, taking a laptop home. Well, we did that every night. So remote work was never the issue. It was, now I've got to deal with a bunch of different logistics that hadn't been, sort of incorporated into the way in which we functioned.
Well, I know that you guys have, had situations where both of you are conference speakers at times and different things. And I have personally seen where you've tag team, which has been great. I mean, actually, Jeremy, you and I actually had we were having coffee, I guess, one morning in Chicago, in downtown Chicago, I think it was. You had Liam, and we were just sitting there, and while Shannon, you were actually presenting. and whatever, and then joined us a little bit later, and I maybe we even got lunch or whatever. But it was I see that with that, but with that, Shannon, from your perspective, I guess is that as you're trying to deal with it, what about from the mother's perspective and the wife's perspective and all that? What are you looking at trying to, it's like
hard.
You're probably herding cats as well, trying to keep every
Yep. And you haven't even mentioned I have to herd Jeremy. I mean, it's not just the kids. But no, it's
definitely the anchor.
No, it's hard. One of the things that, I grew up in a world where I went to my mimas every day, right? My grandmother, basically, that was who I went to every morning. She picked me up from school, and that's what I knew. I'm in a different environment now. And as a working mom, it was always really important to me to make sure that my kids knew that I was always going to be there. Even if we had to travel, one of the things that we did, a lot of our friends would call their kids and things at night. We wouldn't do that because what we found is if you call them on the phone and talk to them, that gives them a chance to be sad that you're not sitting there with them. So what we instead started doing is we actually started this fun thing. We would send them messages. We would send them video messages no matter where we were. And then they would have a chance to send a video message back to us. Right. So it was more of a fun thing. It didn't give them a chance to be sad that suddenly it dawned on them that you were not sitting next to them. But, it is hard. We did get to take Liam around with us when he was little, which was fantastic because being a first time mom, that was really important for me. I really wanted to be there for everything. And then when Fallon came along, we couldn't obviously do that. But then COVID hit soon thereafter. So what we ended up doing is literally there were things that I could insert myself into to make sure that I was plugged in. For example, like being a room mom. It sounds silly, but it was an easy thing for me to plug into their elementary school and their preschool that let me feel like I was a part of the community. And I got to meet other moms, very similarly situated. I got to meet other working moms, and that really made a huge difference. And like Jeremy said, I think just the village that we've been able to maintain up here and the friends we've been able to make. But I also have to give kudos to all of my work colleagues, whether it's people who work in other law firms or people who work in, other companies or clients that we have. They've been hugely supportive of me as a mom and traveling. And that to me has been the world. I mean, if it's, hey, can you come on Wednesday instead of Tuesday night? Because I know your kid has a swim meet, it's one of those types of things. And I really have to say, I think the environment of our world has shifted so much that people, it's normal. Suddenly, we'll be on a call like this and you'll see a little head pop up behind me, and that's become very normal. It's not Jeremy. But I was on a call. Matter of fact, I was on a call the other day. Andy, you'll appreciate this. I was on a call with representatives from 10 different countries, and I was the U.S. representative. And literally, I was on there at 6 a.m. my time, and suddenly you see a little head pop up just up behind my shoulder, and I didn't at first see it because I was talking, and suddenly everyone started laughing. So, and all these people were like, "Oh, she's so cute," But that's become very commonplace. So people don't expect that your families are not seen, right? That you don't talk about your families.
With the COVID situation, as unfortunate as that is, and all the advent of really utilizing, video conferencing so much more. You see that there's been I'll maybe even a culture change in the business environment that you see some of that stuff where in the past, if you had something and there would be a family member, you'd be mortified. Oh no, whatever. It's like, okay, you're going to have to keep your family out when you're doing it. It's like now it's like, there are people that have their pets coming in, they have the family, whatever.
Walking
it's
across
like,
the screen, yeah.
So there you go. And the one thing though, there's so much to the legal profession that is, done, shall we just say, remotely. I mean, in a sense, you don't have to be face to face with a client. There's so much research done. There's a lot of times a conference call or a phone call can suffice. The Zoom video conference course, definitely. But as you're going through that in today's world, from what I'm gathering, I guess you guys have never missed a lick. I mean, it's just like you're constantly going and whatnot. And with the pandemic, and now we've come out of it and you're still going. I mean, obviously, Shannon, you're elected to the top spot there with the NAFTZ and those kinds of things. So that's that pulls you, even outside your family and your firm. Then you have your extracurricular, business. And I'm sure then you've got family types things. You're getting yanked six ways from Sunday, I would think.
Well, it's interesting. You raised that about the extracurriculars, and I hadn't really thought about that now till you just asked it. But you're right. So like I've been the chair of the NAFTZ, and Jeremy is on IDAC, was the Illinois District Export Council. Jeremy he was also on the board for the University of Chicago alumni board. I'm on the board for Beyond the Baby Blues, which helps women with maternal mental health. So those are truly extracurriculars. But I will tell you, and Jeremy, I don't know if you agree, but if you saw our calendar has a lot of colors on it. I have a color, Jeremy has a color, Leo has it, so we know whose activity is when. And there's a whole lot of laughing that goes on, I'll tell you that.
Well, you know what, and it's interesting. So that's one thing. You've got a color-coded calendar. At least it kind of helps collaborate on something.
I mean, Zoom and those tools have been helpful, but there are times where meetings are still needed, and we haven't gone back to that yet. And I don't know if we ever really will. In some ways, there's a lot of companies that have seen this as a kind of a cost down opportunity to reduce their footprints, and people come in one day a week, and it's not always the same people. In our area, to me, is so unique because we need to talk to everybody, from product design, development, sourcing, purchasing, shipping, receiving, accounting, finance, sales, trade compliance, legal, HR, IT, it just depends on the issue. And it's nigh impossible to get enough time on a calendar, right? Invariably you have a call and someone's budgeted a half an hour. I mean, you can barely scratch the surface, or an hour, even that, it's not enough. And it's, Tuesday morning, we had a client come into town, and it was really because they actually brought some new resources on board. And it was a chance to kind of, the gang's all here, right? To really understand all the support we provided, that we are providing, understand their, the strength of their bench, which is really strong. And it was like, wow, I missed this, because in 3 or 4 hours, it's an open exchange and dialogue. Whereas it's like, all right, I only have 10 more minutes. What else can we talk about? And it's, and in our area, one issue begets another. And, we may be talking about X, but as you talk about X, someone brings up Y. And you're like, whoa. Can we go back to Y? And they don't realize our area is not compartmentalized. It's, it really flows across multiple issues and concerns that feed off one another. And I think that's a real challenge. And I know it's a challenge for compliance people and for legal who are trying to mind the ship. Not that it's not for others as well in their own ways, but from my compliance mindset, you don't have that visibility. You don't have that ongoing engagement and dialogue. You can't walk down the hallway and show someone something and say, hey, what does this mean? You got to find when they're in the office or when they're not on a call or whatever. And so I think, and the laws are only getting more complex, right? I mean, the stuff we're dealing with in the last 6-7 years, bam. I mean, wasn't even on your table, your plate, if we went back that many years on many of the issues we're dealing with. And, with a very activist Congress and certainly the administrations as well. So I think we've really lost something there. And I don't know the answer to it. Overall, there are some companies that have tried to do a little more, but even there, and I'm not picking on the others, it's very difficult to get that balance internally and then let us be support externally.
Well, to your point, I will say this. I think without exception, I've had more people tell me, and I personally believe this, you definitely get more out of a face-to-face meeting. And it's by far more productive. You're able to socialize maybe a little bit. You can read the body language and whatnot at times as well. But a lot of times with some of these meetings, especially if it's somewhat of a longer one, many times there is more progress made in the hallways during a break than there is during the actual meeting. So you don't get that with the Zoom. Now, that said, I also will say that there's also a scenario where in today's world, people are so apt to let email become the primary mode of communication rather than a confirmation of what we just talked about on a phone call or in a meeting or something like that. So does that happen as far as in with your legal side of things? And when you're trying to work with people, is it better to, let me just pick up the phone rather than this email tag back and forth or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'm without a doubt, because, you'll send in, first of all, if an email gets disseminated to a broader group, once it's out there, right? And if it not misrepresents, but misstates something or doesn't understand whatever, we're dealing again with operational people who are looking at the ability to make a decision for business, not for us, for business, and sometimes they'll rip and run with it. And you're like, whoa, and we may not even know because they've got what they think they needed. And so, you have to try to reel them back in. But by then, if you even know about it, it's, far down the road. So, and there's no healthy exchange to verbalize. It's not like in an email, I can do what if scenarios, right? And there always are a lot of what if scenarios. Talking it through is different. A light bulb goes off when you talk through, because that, again, it may be responsive to the particular facts, or what we've often seen, and it's true in training as well, and a lot, I'm sure you could attest to this, in a training environment, it makes you think, God, do we have that issue? Or, make a note, I'm going to go back and talk to so-and-so. Or, in a closed setting, you'll say, you brought this up, but what about that? You don't get that in an email. It's not possible. So it is very difficult for us to, we can give you good guidance, and we do, but it's based on how the questions and issues are framed, particularly in writing, and we'll poke and prod and chisel away and go back, well, do you mean this or that? And what about this? But at some point, they're like, how many emails am I going to get on this issue? And it loses its effectiveness.
Well, I will say that I have had the opportunity where I've had an issue come up and had a question. I'm like, okay, I need to call somebody. And I've had that, called actually and left voicemails for both of y'all. And, it's like, hey, either one of you, hey, I've left one with Jeremy or I've left one with Shannon. It's like, any of you, I got a question, not sure where to go with it. And I will say I've always enjoyed our conversations. They have always been so intriguing and stimulating and trying to figure out, it's like, okay, am I heading down the right way? Did I have it? Or am I, full of beans here on this issue or what? What's going on?
Like we said, another call scheduled. Thank you so much for providing the opportunity. It's always fun to talk with both of you. Look forward to seeing your faces instead of just on the computer. And everyone have a great weekend. To Andy's comments earlier, let's all find a time for family and friends and hug those around you, and take care. Looking forward to 2024.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeremy.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shannon, from your perspective on things, in the legal, in the international trade law, as a male here, I'm looking at things and I've not seen really a big issue between female, male type things, but have you seen that? Have you seen an issue where maybe it has been difficult, or is there parity, I guess, between the genders right now in the legal realm?
That's a great question. And I would tell you that I've definitely seen that change over time, for certain. When I first started in this area, you definitely, from my perspective, it definitely was more male dominated. What was interesting is, as I think both of you guys know, I grew up in a racing environment, and I grew up around a lot of automotive, a lot of cars, and all those good things. Ironically, doing what I do for a living, I tend to work with a lot of OEMs and those types of organizations. And I can definitely tell you, I was definitely not the majority walking into a manufacturing plant and having the discussions about, what was going on in the manufacturing plants. That definitely has changed. I can also tell you it's changed at all different kinds of levels, whether it's being females in the attorney slots in our world, females being within the companies at different levels. I've definitely seen that change. And it was kind of interesting that you asked me this question, because just recently, I had the opportunity to be in Barcelona for meetings that were held. And it was actually for the Latin American and a Latin American global organization. And it was funny because I was the U.S. representative, and as fortunate enough to be chair of the NAFTZ. Obviously, I'm female. It so happened that the chair or the president of the Latin American, my counterpart, is also female, and one of the women who is the manager for the largest free zone in Europe is also female. So they actually did a little photo shoot because that was just a really unique opportunity to get us together. But I will tell you, particularly in international trade, at all levels, I definitely think you're seeing the shift. The shift is occurring. It's really great to see women move forward in these roles and be successful and have, you go back to the work-life balance. I think a lot of people are trying to manage that. I think it's better understood now, which I think definitely paves the way for better opportunities where women don't feel like they have to make a choice and sacrifice one thing over the other. And, like I said here, we do a lot of tag teaming. And Jeremy said we have a village. I don't have a full-time nanny. I don't have a nanny that works with us at all. I know I have a lot of friends that do because that works for their family. We had to come up with our own different balance and our own different village. And I think a lot of women are doing that. And it's really been great to see that and to see the support throughout, like I said, whether it's companies, whether it's law firms, whether it's consulting firms, tech firms, what have you. But from international trade, I've definitely seen that shift over my career for sure.
Well, let me say that I have seen you in situations where you may be the only woman on stage or in a room and whatever. And yet, here's the thing that I find that's so great is that, and I would assume based on your, as you're growing up and all that, I mean, you're just one of the folks, one of the guys kind of thing, but as you're conducting yourself and handling things, I never get this sense that you're trying to elbow in or you're going to be, some, mad woman that's going to, handle it. It's like you're just you. And it's so, not only are you pleasant to be around, but I mean, it's just like, man, you're tough. Yeah. I mean, you're tough. You can throw out some tough things and questions, whatever, but you do it in such a manner that it is just, again, I have a lot of respect for you. And it's just one of those things where you've accomplished a lot. You've earned a tremendous amount of respect from folks. And it's one of those, it's been great, seriously. So, I think that's wonderful. What about somebody that's coming up through the ranks now and they're interested in the international trade? They may be, whether they need to be an attorney, whether they need to be, in the brokerage industry or import exports or whatever. Do you have any suggestions for folks on maybe how to stay current on issues? I mean, as you said, there's all kinds of things going on. It's like it's overwhelming. So what do you do to stay current, or what do you suggest to somebody?
It is. And I actually have a great example for you. I have a colleague who actually worked for a client that we work for, and really, really smart woman, just amazingly smart woman. And she started out in the logistics area and started working her way through. And I'd worked with her for a number of years. And we had some discussions, and she up and decided to go to law school. And we are actually attending her graduation party this evening. But she has stayed in the world of international trade because it's something she's fallen in love with. And we were honored to be invited to her graduation party because she was talking about the support that we'd given to her, which was just, beautiful. But I think the way to stay current is talk to people, right? Talk to people who are in the area, whether it's law firms, whether it's consulting firms, like I said, whatever the case may be, talk to people and make sure you also have the opportunity to look at what, keep a pulse on what the government is doing, right? You see things in the headlines, you see things in the news. International trade is a huge area. One of the things, we'll get resumes and things from students that are in law school saying, hey, are you bringing on interns? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? I want to practice international international law. International trade and international law are really two different things. And so really get a sense of what's going on. I think the one thing about international trade is that we have had the ability to become, Jeremy and I keep saying we're the cool kids at the table now, not Jeremy and me specifically, but all of us in international trade, since the tariffs within the Trump administration came to the fore, obviously continuing with the Biden administration, international trade is front and center and it is not going away. So now people finally understand what we do. And I'll tell you another quick funny story, which is probably not politically correct, but I'll tell you anyway. So my father used to try to tell people what his daughter does for a living as this lawyer, right? And so he used to tell people, they would say, I don't understand. What is this international trade thing? And my father said, oh, it's easy. She helps people import drugs and export guns. And I said, Dad, that is not funny. And he would say, oh, come on, it's a little funny. I'm like, Dad, that is not, I'm the prim and proper. That is absolutely not funny. And he just thought that was the funniest thing ever. But all kidding aside, and obviously it's not funny to do that, but all kidding aside, the thing about that, it resonated with people because they were like, oh, like Miami Vice, people are bringing in things they shouldn't, or they're bringing in things they should, and you're stopping the bad guys.
Yes. Just assume that kind of thing. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And do it legally.
Yeah, exactly. But now people do understand what we all do, right? They understand what supply chain means. They understand when there are things not on the shelves. They understand forced labor. What does that mean? What are we trying to stop with that? It's a little easier now to stay relevant and to learn more because things are in the news so much. And so, my advice to people who are up and coming in this area is to just get as much information as you can, whether it's through, if you're in school and you can join associations as a student, they have student rates or it's free for you to join, whatever the case may be. Get involved. Talk to people in the area. Lawyers are I'm always happy to talk to people in this area if they're not sure they want to get into it. They're not sure if they want to go to law school. They're not sure if they want, I'm happy to talk to anybody about my personal experience. I grew up in this world, so I'm a bit unique. I've been doing this since I was 24. And so I'm unique that way. I didn't make a career switch. I didn't do any of that. But, talk to people. That's what I would tell you. Talk to people who are in this area that you see out speaking on topics. And that's what I would tell you is probably the most critical thing is staying in touch with folks.
And taking a step further is get involved in trade associations. You're going to network with people in the industry, so that's a good thing. But then the other is a lot of trade associations will put out different summaries on issues. So you don't have to read a dissertation to get current, on some things like that. So that would be another thing. And then, and pick your niche. I mean, that's the other scenario is don't try and learn everything. Maybe if you've got an interest in a particular area, hence the foreign trade zone type stuff or ATA carnets or imports or exports or whatever, pick a niche and then focus on that. And I think
LinkedIn has helped with that too, right? Now we have LinkedIn, which is a platform that's a business platform where you can look for different associations that are out there, or you can look to people that are in that area. Or we've had people reach out because we happen to go to the same, undergrad, and they suddenly realize that I practice in this area, and they may reach out. Those are also really good tools that people should think about using as well.
Well, Shannon, I got to tell you, we could keep talking and all that, and I would love that, but I'm sure we need to bring this to a close. But any final words for our listeners?
No, I really appreciate being on. Jeremy and I have a very unique situation in the fact that, we worked together for so many years, and then we ended up getting married and have our family. So, everyone knows our family, and we love we talk about our village here, but the international trade community has really become our village as well. Like we said, we've all known each other for many, many years, and you're not the only one. We have lots of people in this area are the same way. And actually, last funny story before we cut out, Megan Montgomery very well, right?
Oh, yes.
She's a very dear friend of mine.
Yes.
Very dear friend of mine.
Love her
Megan
to death.
Montgomery. Yeah, she's fantastic. But she's a dear friend, and she and I actually were pregnant with our first children together, which was a really, really fun thing. And so it was a really great experience because we could share stories as moms, as working moms in international trade, and
Both had boys.
And our sons were born 3 months apart. So we've been able to share that experience all the way up, which has been really great. So it really truly is a community, and we're just really happy to be a part of it. And we love what we do. And like I said, in our world, that work-life home balance it has to be a lot of laughter. It has to be, otherwise it just doesn't work. And Lalo, you can attest to that.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's like if you've got that great relationship there with your husband as you're working through and all that, it's like, that's that shiny new penny that you're able to cherish and hang on to. And so congratulations on a successful firm. Successful marriage and family and whatnot. But again, you two are fantastic folks, and I thank you so much for coming on. We love you to death. Lalo and I both have enjoyed interviewing you guys on the different topics we've had over the time and all that. So thank you so much for being on our show today.
No, absolutely. Happy to do it. And happy holidays to both of you, and happy early birthday, Mr. Shiles.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. I think Jeremy said he was going to nominate me for the lead role in the Old Coots Club. So
there you go.
All right, folks, have a great day.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.